Welcome to the 7th episode of the Racing Report. I am your host, Rob Peeters, for this fabulous little half hour where we talk all things auto racing. So sit back and grab some popcorn because we're going to be talking about a lot of things that were going down in the world of auto racing this weekend. Lots of controversy in the world of NASCAR. The F1 points battle shifted in Max Verstappen's favor, and we've also got even more things to talk about when it comes to the grand scheme of lawsuits and even some silly season news coming up. So we had a great race in Brazil, I thought. We had exciting races in Martinsville, but maybe for the wrong reasons. We'll talk about that all later on in the show. As always, remember, my name is Rob Peeters. I am your host. You could find me on social media at rpeeters33. That's RPEETERS 33. That lets me know you appreciate, you like the show, you support the show, and please make sure to tell all of your friends. So let's go ahead and jump right on in to the world of the news, and we'll begin with Formula One. And it looks like Sauber will have a new lineup next year as Formula 2 championship leader Gabriele Bortoleto is looking primed to land that second spot to be paired with Nico Hülkenberg next year. Because remember, Nico Hülkenberg is leaving Haas at the end of the season, and he's going to go over to Sauber. And Guan Yu Zhou, or Zhou Guan Yu, excuse me, he was supposed to be, I guess he's out. He's out, and now it looks like so could Valtteri Bottas. He could be out as well, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I would imagine Bottas will land somewhere, if not in some kind of high-profile sports car race, something. I don't know. He'll land somewhere. I'm certain of it. But then also, speaking of this, this is interesting. Despite being replaced by Esteban Ocon next year, Haas F1 team principal Ayo Komatsu says he wants to keep Kevin Magnussen on the team, either as a reserve driver or in a advisory role. Be very interesting. Now, keep in mind, he did not race at the Brazilian Grand Prix. He was replaced by Oliver Behrman, who is taking his seat next year, by the way. He's going to be racing in Haas anyway next year. But he was in his seat because Kevin Magnussen was very, very ill. Very, very ill over this weekend. So Oliver Behrman got his first actual Formula One start again there. So then we'll move on into IndyCar news here because we got some big-time silly season news to talk about. Prema has announced that Robert Schwartzman will compete alongside Callum Ilott during the team's inaugural IndyCar campaign next year. So big news there. If you watched Formula 2 in 2020, you know that this pairing is pretty good. It's not a bad pairing. It's really, realistically, I don't think it's that bad of a pairing. I think that it's probably the best pairing of young drivers that are experienced. Schwartzman has been a Sauber test driver for the past couple of seasons, and now he's getting a chance to run full-time in IndyCar. So that's huge for him. And then we have some testing news to talk about because Enzo Fittipaldi is going to test for Arrow McLaren. Felipe Nasr is set to test for Penske. And then Hunter McElroy is set to test for Ed Carpenter Racing at the Thermal Club coming up here. I don't know what'll come of that. I don't really know. I think Felipe Nasr definitely deserves an opportunity to test for Penske. Remember, he did test for Carlin Racing back when they were a team in I believe it was 2019, but it didn't materialize into an actual full-time ride. So we'll see where that goes. Again, I don't think it's going to go anywhere for Nasr at Penske, but if there's an open seat in IndyCar, they might be able to look at Nasr as an as a potential driver, given how well this test goes with Penske. You know, if he shows incredible pace driving a Penske car, I would imagine someone could pass him up, right? I mean, he's raced in Formula One. He scored points in Formula One. So is it Marcus Ericsson? They were teammates at Sauber, ironically, about 10 years ago. You know, and so I think that there's that opportunity there where maybe Nasr has shown his prowess at not only Formula One, but then also sports cars. Maybe he can find good success in IndyCar, especially with apparently IndyCar seriously looking at Interlagos as part of their international series that they want to go to. So we could be seeing races in Mexico, Interlagos, and Argentina next year, or in 2026, not next year, but in 2026, according to Mark Miles. So if you believe Mark Miles, which I don't blame you if you don't, we'll see how this goes. But, that might be a good deal for him at some point. Moving on into the supercars world, down under, Triple Eight Racing has signed away Super 2 driver Zach Bates from Walkinshaw Andretti United, and he will now pair with Craig Lowndes during the endurance races next year. So remember, there's only going to be 2 endurance races next year, the Bathurst 1000 and then at the Bend. But he's going to get experience there. They've signed him away, and I read an article on Speed Cafe, I think it was, where Tom Walkinshaw was very much like, it's bittersweet, but it's good for him. He was our Super 2 driver, so he was in our development ladder, but you want to see them get promoted to supercars one way or another, even if it's not with your team. So good for him. Good to see that. Craig Lowndes getting to pair with another experienced, another young kid. Pairing, I think Craig Lowndes is one of the best drivers for that role to really mentor these young kids. That's great for him. That's going to hopefully play big dividends. Now let's talk about some NASCAR news, because there's some big lawsuit-related news. So on Monday, on Monday, November 4th, we had the judge that was assigned to this antitrust case filed by Front Row Motorsports and 2311 Racing did not make a decision during the Monday hearing. Now, a decision is expected later. Now, this is a decision on the team's request for the preliminary injunction that would allow them, both 2311 and FRM, to compete as chartered entries next year. Now, NASCAR is arguing that because they didn't sign the charter agreement, they will have to compete as open teams. Now, according to some of the NASCAR reporters that were in the courthouse on Monday, according to Bob Pockris at the very least, we know, based on testimony, that apparently Tyler Reddick is free to leave 2311 Racing if the team does not have a charter, which is very, very interesting when you think about it, because that had to have been built into his contract, and this was an incredible risk for 2311 to make by not signing that charter agreement, knowing that they had very clearly grounds that they wanted to stand on when it comes to arguing this case. And in fact, we even saw Michael Jordan himself show up in a suit and tie to the courthouse on Monday. Yes, Jumpman, Air Jordan, is very involved in this lawsuit. And I would imagine it's not going to look good for NASCAR, I don't think. And especially since there was another quote that was crazy by this NASCAR attorney, where he said that basically claiming that these teams didn't need NASCAR and that they could go to another form of sport, even in saying they could race IndyCar or sports car. I was like, what kind of a crazy nut says that? You're the attorney, you're arguing on behalf of the sport, and you're now saying that the teams don't need the sport? But the sport needs the teams to thrive, and the teams needs the sport to exist. They put all their money into stock car racing. That was their counter argument, was that they put in all, the teams, 2311 and FRM, put all their money into stock car racing, and that to just transition that into IndyCar racing would just be unfeasible, or sports car race, just completely unfeasible without some sort of technical partnership that they would have to put together ahead of time. They want to be in stock car racing. That's where they want to be. That's where the philosophy for those teams lies. And so it's going to be very interesting to see, because we are expecting some sort of ruling at some point during the week. So you might be watching this show and the ruling might have already happened. But at the time of recording, the judge has not made a decision yet. So it will be very interesting to see what that decision is and when it gets made, coming here up in the next couple days. Now let's just some housekeeping here before we run into our first break. Whelen will return to sponsor Jesse Love and the number 2 Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet in the NASCAR Xfinity Series next year. So no change really with that. Also in the Xfinity Series, Brennan Poole is going to run the full Xfinity Series season with Alpha Prime Racing. Now remember, Ryan Ellis is leaving that team to go to DGM next year, so we're going to still possibly see some shakeups with that team going on. And then this was. I didn't know this. I did not know this, but apparently a CBS Sports reporter reported that talked to Lane Riggs during the truck race this weekend. And Lane Riggs told him that he was going to have off-season shoulder surgery. And when he asked him, okay, well, what are you having off-season shoulder surgery for? He said, well, I dislocated my shoulder celebrating my win at Milwaukee. So Lane Riggs is scheduled to have shoulder surgery because he dislocated his shoulder celebrating his first career Truck Series win. Honestly, of all the reasons to probably need off-season shoulder surgery, that's probably one of the better ones to have, right? So we'll see how that goes for him. Hopefully all goes well. He comes back and maybe he goes on a monster tear like a man by the name of Dale Earnhardt did after he had surgery. Before his unfortunate, and that's the big thing. Man, before I get into another tangent, I always wonder what could have been, because Earnhardt was another man after that shoulder surgery for sure. So, anyway, we have to take a break, but we will be right back with the recap. We're going to talk all the controversy coming up in the NASCAR Xfinity Truck and Cup. All of that controversy coming up here in the next segment. So don't go anywhere. You're watching the Racing Report. Welcome back to the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and now we're going to talk about the crazy, crazy stuff that happened in the NASCAR world this weekend. All right, so what it comes down to here is you've probably already made up your mind. If you follow NASCAR, you probably already know what's going on. But we're going to talk about it anyway for those of you that don't. NASCAR's playoffs are very controversial, and they have created multiple controversial moments. And this is at least the second most egregious example of race fixing, I think, in the chase or playoff era of NASCAR. Now, I'm going to explain why I say that, because what happened on the last lap. So Ryan Blaney, first of all, no problems with Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney did walk off, win into the sunset, right? He's going to be competing for a championship again. He's going to have a chance to defend his title. That's good for him. No problems there. I don't think Penske Ford anything. I mean, they probably did at some point, but it was not as nearly as egregious as what the Toyotas and the Chevrolets were doing. So you had a situation where Christopher Bell and William Byron were battling for the last spot in the playoffs. The absolute last spot. And they were separated by only a couple points, like maybe 1 to 2 points. And at that time, neither of their cars were very good. They were on old tires. They had their worn tires. They were just not very good. They were holding up other drivers. And in fact, Christopher Bell was, I believe, 1 or 2 laps down. So we're talking a situation where these guys both cannot afford to lose spots and need to do everything in their power to gain spots. Because again, in NASCAR, every spot is a point. So every position you move up, that's 1 additional point that you gain. So if you move up 1 spot and your competitor, the guy that you're racing, falls back 1 spot, you automatically now have at least a 2-point gap on them. So when I say this, what you had in the very end was a situation where William Byron could not lose any more spots than what he was. And you had very clear team orders and instructions according to radio scanner communications, which could be listened back to. Sounded like, very egregiously, again, the spotter of the 3 car, Austin Dillon's spotter, was making him very aware that he could not pass William Byron. Now, this is crazy to me because Byron was running like something like 6th or 7th. He was running in the top 10, and Austin Dillon was having a really good run himself. And I would have thought instinctively, if I'm Austin Dillon, to heck with it. I'm going to go get myself a good finish. But no, he's like, no, I'm going to do this blockade. him and Ross Chastain essentially blocked the entire track for William Byron and did not pass him in the final 25, 30 laps. Now, to make matters even crazier, was you had then Bubba Wallace, who he's claiming that his tire was going down. And Freddie Kraft, his spotter, went on Door Bumper Clear, the podcast, and defended him and was like, hey, his tire was going down, this and this. The radio communication seems to back that up. So if there's anybody that I'm going to believe in this situation, it's going to be probably Bubba over the Chevrolet guys. But that doesn't necessarily mean that at the very end of that race, Bubba didn't very clearly drop off the pace. And again, he was on the same lap as Bell, so all Bell had to do really at that point was pass him. They would tie on points, and Bell would have the tiebreaker. So that's where it got kind of crazy, because then there were a lot of people who were saying, well, did Bubba let him pass? Did Bubba Wallace let Christopher Bell pass? I don't know, because then Christopher Bell, on the very last corner, he's going into turn 3, overcooks the tires and slides up into the wall and kind of rides it. Because how are you going to get off the wall? And Freddie Kraft said this on his podcast too, and I kind of agree with it, but at the same time, it's very... NASCAR has made it very clear after Ross Chastain's Hail Melon back in 2022, hey, you can't ride the wall anymore and gain an advantage. But pointing out that point, he didn't actually gain an advantage. He actually lost time by riding the wall. But yet, NASCAR penalized him. So Christopher Bell was initially in, and it took them what felt like forever, was probably more like 15, 20 minutes, to make a decision. And they penalized Bell. They dropped the tail end, and that was it. William Byron was in the final championship 4, and Bell was out. But Byron didn't seem too pleased either. Neither did Bell. But there were very, very serious... And here's the other crazy thing about it. Jeff Gluck and a lot of other people in the NASCAR media were reporting that Joe Gibbs... And in fact, I think there's video out there of him saying this too. But Joe Gibbs apparently could not appeal the decision because they'd signed the new charter agreement. So when we talk about that lawsuit that's going on, we need to remember that, because even though someone like Joe Gibbs couldn't sue NASCAR, I don't think there's anything prohibiting them from appearing as a witness, as a witness, or providing testimony in a court case. And that very well could be used against NASCAR when we get later on into that lawsuit. So, very important things to keep in mind here as we go on. But that is the NASCAR Championship 4. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, and William Byron are all going to run for a championship this weekend at Phoenix. Whether you like it or not, that's what's going to happen. And apparently, if you don't like it, someone up at NASCAR, according to Denny Hamlin, thinks that anybody who doesn't like the playoffs is just a bot. Every NASCAR fan I've ever talked to doesn't like the playoffs. There's a few people that kind of understand it and kind of get it, but everybody I've ever talked to, doesn't get it, doesn't like it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, they were in Martinsville. Eric Almirola won. Now he swept both Martinsville races. He held off Sammy Smith and Chandler Smith. And I mentioned this. This technically altered the outcome of the playoffs, because had Almirola not been there, Sammy Smith probably would have ended up winning that race, right? Hypothetically, take him out of that scenario. Take Almirola completely out of the race. Sammy Smith is the next guy. Chandler Smith, also the next guy. So both of those guys are eliminated from the playoffs because, essentially, of Eric Almirola's win. Again, controversial, bushwhacking is what it is. But yeah, so after that race, then Chandler Smith and Cole Custer had a little bit of a scuffle because I guess Chandler didn't like the way he was raced, proceeded to slap him. And again, we talked about this last week. Chandler Smith is claiming that he doesn't have a ride for next year. Yeah. So all in all, just some very crazy stuff going on there. And it was not really much of a fight. It was really more of a slap Like he just kind of slapped him and ran away. Is it just me or NASCAR fights less intense than they were? I feel like 10 years ago when Matt Kenseth, went after Brad Keselowski and heck, even we got the fake wrestling match, which I don't know if it was fake. It might have been fake, between the late John West Townley and Spencer Gallagher. I don't know. Anyway, Xfinity Championship 4 is going to be Austin Hill, AJ Allmendinger, Cole Custer, and Justin Allgaier. And then as we talk about the Truck Series also had some fireworks. Christian Eckes won, but he did so by essentially punting Taylor Gray out of the win. Taylor Gray naturally was not happy about this. Now the walk to Eckes, because Eckes won the race, Gray got out and walked all the way down pit road and all the way down to and he had plenty of time. There was a NASCAR official walking them. There were reporters waiting to talk to him, trying to get this on video, because believe me, I would do the same thing. I had a video go viral when I caught Elio Castroneves yelling at Scott Speed in a SRX race in 2021, which, by the way, was still funny. It's still cool. Scott Speed just did not care, man. Anyway, it was very interesting to see this, but eventually Taylor Gray, he gets up in his face. He gives him a stern talking to, and the one interesting thing around all the profanity that's being laid, right, is Gray basically says, well, next time I'll punt you. I didn't punt you, why did you punt me? And Eckes looks him dead in the eye and is like, maybe you should have. And it's like, okay, all bets are off now, but that's what this playoffs creates. That's what the playoffs create. These kinds of desperation moves out of drivers. I could get into a whole discussion of it. I won't, but just know that I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't agree with it. But anyway, we'll move on, because we'll talk about a championship crowned the normal way, and a full season championship in Formula One, the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Hey, okay, so Max Verstappen won the race. His first win since Barcelona. All the way back in the summer in like June. Crazy, right? So he wins his first Grand Prix since then. And essentially, he hasn't mathematically eliminated Lando Norris yet, but it's close. And this is crazy because Lando Norris won the sprint race because Oscar Piastri was told to give the spot to him. So there was that, and Lando Norris didn't like it. But then what's crazy to me, too, is they did that specifically for Lando's championship hopes, because they knew that Max Verstappen had a grid penalty. And they thought if they get as many points as possible on Max Verstappen, they might have a chance at it. They didn't. It didn't work out. The race was red flagged. Verstappen, who started 17th, jumped everybody, went to first, alongside the two Alpines, who got a double podium and what I think like a $50 million increase to their season-ending prize. So it was huge. It was cool. It was so cool to see all the mechanics gathered around and celebrating, because you knew just how big that result was for them. So again, it's what the sport is all about, in my opinion, when it comes to Formula One. That kind of team camaraderie where you battle around and you defy the odds, you defy your car's limitations, and you prevail in extreme circumstances, and that's what you see. I like those stories in Formula One. But no, seriously, just some crazy stuff going on there. And so guess Max Verstappen, since he wins, and Lando Norris, I think he finished like 5th or 6th, 7th, less points. So now Max Verstappen could go to Las Vegas here in a couple of weeks and mathematically clinch the title. And that's not something that we expected a couple of weeks ago, but that's something that has now happened. So it's just some very, very interesting things going on. All right, we're coming back. We got to go take a break real quick. But when we come back, we're going to wrap up the weekend, take a look at everything that's coming up this weekend, and then we'll sign off. So don't go anywhere yet, because we'll be right back with the Racing Report. Welcome back to the Racing Report. I am Rob Peeters, and let's take a look at what's coming up in the Motorsports Calendar this weekend. NASCAR is going to crown a champion in Phoenix. So the championship 4 for the NASCAR Cup Series is going to be Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, and William Byron. They're going to crown their championship on Sunday. On Saturday, the Xfinity Series champion is going to be crowned. Austin Hill, AJ Allmendinger, Cole Custer, and Justin Allgaier will all be racing for a title that day. And then on Friday night, the Truck Series is going to is going to crown its title. We'll also have a ARCA West finale as well that will be in conjunction with that race. But Grant Enfinger, Christian Eckes, Ty Majeski, and Corey Heim are all going to run for a championship this weekend at Homestead. So we'll see how, or excuse me, not Homestead. What year is it? At Phoenix. So we'll see how all of that goes as we go on. I don't know who's going to win the title. If you want my predictions, I think for Cup you're going to see Reddick win. That's just my prediction. I think in Xfinity, I would be hard-pressed to say Cole Custer doesn't go back-to-back. And then in trucks, it's hard not to pick Majeski on a short track. I know Phoenix isn't technically a short track, but it's hard not to pick him. It's either him or Heim, I think. Corey Heim is still jaded probably from last year, the way he lost that race. I think he's going to drive a smart race, and I think he's going to get himself a first title as well. But then Formula One is going to take a couple of weeks off. They're going to come back the week before Thanksgiving for the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which, remember, will be at 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Because that's how you get Americans to watch your sport. Yeah, but again, I guess we Americans also wake up at 5, 6, 7 a.m. to watch Formula One in Europe, so... I just love when it's over here. You know, the Sao Paulo Grand Prix started at 11:30. Come on. Yeah. More of that, please. All right. The Supercar season is going to wrap up in 2 weekends' time at Adelaide. So November 16th and 17th, we're going to crown a Supercars champion. And then Super Formula is also going to wrap up this weekend at Suzuka. So if you have motorsport.tv, if you're a subscriber there, you'll be able to watch the Super Formula championship be crowned. Now, remember, let's take a look at the championship standings as of right now. We have Sho Suboi leading Tadasuke Makino. It's probably going to go to Sho Suboi, but anything could happen if he has a bad couple of races, because it's 2 races. I got to do 2 races to determine this championship. We're going to see how Sho Suboi does. I imagine he'll probably be able to lock things up, but anything can happen. And then looking forward, let's talk about 2025 racing, because guess what? It's on the horizon. We're in November now. Formula E is coming back. They're going to be racing the Sao Paulo E-Prix coming on December 7th. So in about a month's time, there's still going to be auto racing, which is great news. Great news for everybody. And you could say, oh, I don't care for the electric car racing. Just enjoy the fact that they pack race on a road course. You ever seen that? You ever seen a Mazda Miata race? Now imagine a Mazda Miata race that's more or less got its own distinct silent sound, kind of sound. It takes some getting used to enjoy those powertrains. But believe me, we will talk about that race on this very show when it happens in December. But for right now, that is it for our show. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in today. It really means a lot to me that you guys enjoy and watch this show. Be sure to follow me on social media. Remember, that's at RPEETERS33. And we'll be back again next week to talk about the NASCAR champions that were crowned, maybe any new developments in the lawsuit that's going on, and any silly season news and notes and rumors that are going on. So thank you so much. My name is Rob Peeters, and this has been The Racing Report.